Philippines! In Philippine mythology, the Bakunawa is a dragon that swallows the moon and causes eclipses.
Wait lang, do we really have our own dragons in the Philippines? Mabuhay or in Kapampángan, luwid kayo. Welcome back to my channel. It's me, Kirby Araullo, your friendly Pinoy historian and culture bearer. So if you like history, culture, and everything in between, don't forget to like, share this video, comment down below, and please subscribe. So recently, like literally just a few weeks ago, Miss Universe Philippines Bea Luigi Gomez sported a Bakunawa-inspired national costume at the Miss Universe pageant of 2021. And this literally flooded my inbox with questions about the Bakunawa and countless requests for a video about it. But before we begin, just a reminder that in this video and in my channel, I'll be sharing what I know based on my perspectives and knowledge as a Filipino historian and my upbringing as a Dápû and a culture bearer. So if there's anything that I miss or anything that you want to add from your own cultures and roots in the Philippines or Southeast Asia and beyond, let us know in the comments below. Let us all learn from one another. And by the way, the chibi art you'll see in this video will also be part of my new coloring book about these fantastic beings. Check out the links below to pre-order my coloring book, or if you cannot wait for the physical coloring book, visit my website to order your digital coloring book today. And for a limited time only, just this month of January, use the code NEWYEAR to get 15% off on your purchase on any of my books, zines, coloring books, and ebooks. Now, I know a lot of you have been asking, do we really even have our own native dragons in the Philippines? Let's find out. And since I'll be covering more than a dozen examples of mythological dragons and moon-eating gigantic beings from the diverse and indigenous cultures of the Philippines, for today, let me just give you a brief introduction to the mythology surrounding these fantastic beasts. And maybe in the future, we'll feature each and every one of them in their own separate videos. But for now, let's meet more than a dozen of them. So first, let us start with the most famous one of all, the moon-eating Bakunawa. So, what exactly is a Bakunawa? The Bakunawa mythology belongs to the people of Bicol and the Visayas regions. It is often described as a bluish, grayish, serpent-like dragon with whiskers, sets of wings, and a mouth the size of a big lake. And there's actually a lot of existing variations of this mythology, from the Bicolanos to the Aquianons, the Sugbuanon, the Hiligaynos, and many others. But the overarching theme is the mythology of the Bakunawa and the eclipse. So, once upon a time, the world of our ancestors, according to the Bicolanos and the Visayans, had 7 moons. But the Bakunawa was so enamored and fascinated by their beauty and brightness. Mesmerized by the 7 moons, the Bakunawa, who could no longer resist its desire and hunger, ate and swallowed 6 of them. And so, to prevent the Bakunawa from eating the 7th and final moon, the people must bang their pots, bang their pans, and whatever they can grab to make lots of loud noises to scare the Bakunawa away, and thus saving the people from darkness, saving the world from losing our 7th and final moon, aka the moon we see today. But, unknown to many, apart from causing the eclipse, the Bakunawa was also believed to be the cause of earthquakes and typhoons. According to the Aquianon people on the island of Panay, the movement of the Bakunawa's tail causes the earth to shake, aka the earthquakes. They also believe that typhoons were caused by the Bakunawa blowing wind into the atmosphere. And again, there's a lot of different versions on the details of the mythologies surrounding the Great Bakunawa. So to learn more, check out my live stream with the author and Visayan Tagalog culture bearer Ate Ligaya Cabayes, aka the Pinay writer. It was a very engaging and very enlightening conversation about the Bakunawa and the diverse and beautiful mythologies of the Philippines. So make sure to watch it after this video. Now, the Bakunawa is perhaps the most famous dragon in the mythologies of the Philippines. Like, especially in the last 10 years, we see a lot of Bakunawa arts everywhere, and we see it now in Miss Universe. But then again, the Bakunawa is not alone. So now, let's meet another famous dragon, moon-eating dragon from the Philippines. Let's get to know the Minokawa. The Minokawa is a giant bird-like dragon in the mythology of the indigenous Bagobo people of Mindanao. And just like the Bakunawa, the Minokawa was also believed to be the cause of the eclipse. It was a gigantic bird dragon the size of the island of Bohol, or the island of Buglas, aka what are now the provinces of Negros Occidental and Negros Oriental. It was so huge that it could easily devour the sun and the moon. And with wings as sharp as knives, it was also feared that after swallowing the sun and the moon, the Minokawa would come down to the earth and eat and devour the people. So to save the world from eternal darkness and the people from being eaten, the Bagoba people would come out screaming, crying out loud, banging their gongs, and making the most noises to scare the Minokawa away. Yup, this is similar to what the Visayans and the Bicolanos would do to stop the Bakunawa. And actually, this is also what the Kapampangans and the Tagalog people would do during the eclipse. So, what or who exactly causes the eclipse according to the Kapampangan mythology? In Kapampangan, we have the word Láwû to describe the disappearance of, practically anything. And it's the same as the word Laho in Tagalog. Now this comes from the mythology of the dragon known as the Láwû. The Láwû is a gigantic dragon that causes the eclipse by devouring the sun or the moon. Traditionally, the Láwû was described to be a gigantic bird dragon mixed with the appearances of a serpent and a crocodile. The Kapampangans feared that if the Láwû was successful in swallowing, digesting, and excreting the sun or the moon, and therefore causing a total eclipse, Lakandanum, the god of hunger, would arrive and usher in an age of famine and despair. And in Kapampangan, a total eclipse was known as Tiklane ning Láwû, which literally means the Láwû pooped it, and by it they mean the sun or the moon. Now, to prevent this from happening, to stop the eclipse, to stop Lakandanum from unleashing widespread famine and despair, the Kapampangans would encourage the sun and the moon to fight their way out of Láwû's belly. And they do this by making lots of loud noises, by beating their drums, playing their gongs, banging their pots and pans, and even encouraging our dogs to bark, making the loudest noises to cheerfully encourage the sun and the moon to break free. And this would result in the partial eclipse, or as our Kapampangan ancestors would say, mitdas yachan ing Láwû, which literally means Láwû's belly bursted, hence the sun and the moon breaking free. Now there's a deeper mythology about why Láwû would devour the sun or the moon, and this was to avenge Láwû's mother, Dápû, against Bathala. Dápû was the gigantic crocodile dragon, also known as Indong Tibuan in Kapampangan, aka Mother Earth. And in Kapampangan, Bathala was the sacred blue kingfisher, aka the creator and the father god of the sky. And so Láwû avenges Dápû by swallowing Bathala's own children, the Aldo, the sun, and Bulan, the moon. Aldo in Kapampangan is also known as Apung Sínúpan of Bundok Alaya, aka Mount Arayat, the sun god and the paramount deity in the pantheon of Kapampangan mythology. Traditionally, Apung Sínúpan was believed to have the appearance of a fiery white phoenix. And Apung Sínúpan's own twin and sometimes rival, Bulan, is also known as Apung Malyari of Pinatubo, the moon god, who has the appearance of a fiery red phoenix. Apung Malyari is also known as Apung na Malyari amongst the indigenous Aitas. And in the Aita mythology, Apung na Malyari was the supreme god and not his twin Sínúpan. And in Kapampangan, Apung na Malyari also means the god who make things happen. But let's save this bigger and deeper mythology about the rivalries against, between Bulan and Sínúpan and Dápû and Bathala in future videos. So comment down below if you want to see that video in the near future. Now, before we move on to the other dragons in Philippine mythologies, let us first look at more examples of these gigantic mythological beings that devours the sun or the moon and causes the eclipse in the many cultures and mythologies of the islands, the beautiful islands we now call the Philippines. Now the following, they may not be dragon-like in appearance, but, they are equally fearsome, gigantic, and fascinating. So in no particular order, we have Arimaonga, the gigantic but playful mythological lion of the Meranao people of Mindanao. Arimaonga was so playful that it would accidentally swallow the sun and the moon. And the Meranao people would encourage Arimaonga to spit out the sun or the moon by also making lots of noises during the eclipse. And from Mindanao, let's go to Panay Island. Up next is the Bawa, the gigantic but mostly harmless mythological bird from the Kinaraya mythologies of Antique. The indigenous Kinaraya people believe that Bawa would only devour the moon if there is nothing else to eat. And back down south in Mindanao, in the pre-Islamic mythology of the indigenous Magindanaoan people, we have Kedu, a gigantic mythological serpent also known to cause the eclipse by swallowing either the moon or the sun. And Kedu is similar and most likely related to Ketu from the Hindu mythologies of India and Southeast Asia. And now, also in Mindanao, we have Tambanokano and Tambanakawa. Tambanokano, in the mythology of the indigenous Mandaya people, was a gigantic and powerful crab. It was so powerful that it can cause lightning by simply batting its eyes. Like, by simply doing the beautiful eyes we make our cute little Filipino babies do today. But unlike our cute little chunky Filipino babies today, or maybe perhaps just like us human children today in real life, Tambanokano often quarrels with its parents, the sun and the moon. And so the eclipse in Mandaya mythology is believed to be caused by Tambanokano trying to fight and swallow one of its own parents, the sun or the moon. And now, somewhat similar in appearance to Tambanokano, we have Tambanakawa of the nearby indigenous Manobo people. And in Manobo mythology, Tambanakawa is described to be a gigantic spider-like scorpion that causes the eclipse by attempting to swallow the moon. And now, to save the moon and the world from eternal darkness, the indigenous Manobo people would go out of their homes, shout out loud, beat their drums, dance to the tune of their gongs, and also use their weapons like the bolos and the arrows to threaten Tambanakawa to release the moon. And other serpent-like giants that also causes the eclipse by devouring the moon includes the Olimaw of the Ilocanos in northern Luzon and the Sawa of the Tagalogs and the Ati people of Panay. And actually, Olimaw has a lot of cognate in Southeast Asia. For example, in Kapampángan, Olimaw are the bloodthirsty tigers and lions. And in countries like Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, and other parts of Southeast Asia, Harimaw also means a tiger. But in Tagalog, Halimaw is the word for monsters. And so interestingly, Olimaw in Ilocano mythology was described as a gigantic winged serpent. And speaking of serpent, Sawa on the other hand is the Tagalog word for a large snake, referring particularly to the longest snake on earth, our very own reticulated python, a giant snake native to the Philippines and other parts of Southeast Asia. And now let's meet the other dragons in Philippine mythologies. The ones that do not eat or swallow and devour the moon or the sun. Let's get to know them. Honestly and sadly, today many Filipinos actually think that we don't have our own dragons in the Philippines. That our ancestors had no concepts of, dragons. They strongly believe that dragons are just some, more of a Western and Chinese mythology that our indigenous ancestors had no idea about. But this is simply not true. For example, from the top of my head, in Kapampángan alone, I can list you half a dozen dragons from our indigenous and pre-colonial mythology. So apart from Láwû, like I mentioned earlier, we have its mother, Dápû, aka Indong Tibuan, or in English, Mother Earth, the powerful gigantic crocodile dragon who resides amidst the deep blue sea. And the ancient Kapampangans believed that the earth itself, and particularly the islands we now call the Philippines, are literally carried by Dápû on her back. And thus, earthquakes and tsunamis were believed to be caused by Dápû's movement while searching for food, or when we humans disturb her peace. And another powerful dragon in Kapampangan mythology is Lakandanum. Lakandanum in Kapampangan literally means the god of water. Now, traditionally, Lakandanum was believed to have the appearance of a dragonfish, particularly the mudfish, aka bulig in Kapampangan. In Kapampangan culture, Lakandanum ushers in in Kauran, or the rainy season, and therefore ending Kaleldo, or the dry and hot summer season. And this changing of the seasons was celebrated with a very important feast, because the beginning of Kauran also marks the start of the planting season. In fact, unknown to many, this was actually the indigenous New Year celebration and festival of the Kapampangans, known to us as Lakandanum, which literally means new water, in reference to the end of Kaleldo and the coming of the rainy Kauran season and the swelling of the mighty Indung Kapampangan River, a season ushering in a bountiful harvest. And speaking of rivers, in Kapampangan, we also have the Nagarajas, or simply the Naga, the powerful dragon kings that ruled the oceans and the rivers. And the Nagarajas were also believed to be the younger siblings of the mighty Apung, the judge of all creatures, the bringer of typhoons, and the right hand of the benevolent supreme god Apung Sínúpan. And other dragons in the Kapampangan mythology also include the Alti, or literally the lightning, the blazing red dragon who resides within the eyes of the sun god Apung Sínúpan. And another blazing red dragon was Lakanapi, which in Kapampangan literally means the god of fire. But unlike the Alti, who is the embodiment of Apung Sínúpan's punishment against the evildoers and the evils of the world, Lakanapi, on the other hand, was the lava and the magma, the manifestation of the blood of Dápû, or Indung Tibuan, the blood of our Mother Earth. But perhaps the most gigantic and powerful of all of these native dragons of the Philippines can be found not in Luzon, but in the Sama mythology of the indigenous Sama Bajau people from the islands across the Sulu archipelago, Sulawesi, Borneo, Mindanao, and many others. And this dragon was simply known as the Naga. But this is not your ordinary Naga. This dragon is actually believed to be none other than the Milky Way galaxy itself, a gigantic galactic dragon trapped in the skies by the Almighty God, an all-powerful dragon who one day could be freed and usher in the end of the world. And actually, an amazing Filipino artist, Alfred Ismael Galaroza, aka the Art of Edo, created this epic artwork depicting all the different celestial eating dragons and giants from the different parts of the Philippines united in this fight against the imprisoned Naga, in the fight to prevent the end of the world. You know, it's like the Avengers united in the fight to save the universe from Thanos. Pero seryoso, you know, walang halong biro. Seriously, let's make a movie or even an animated series out of this. I'm really down to be part of the creative team. Like seriously, let's make this epic project a reality. So if you have other examples from your own roots, from your own cultures and mythologies, let us know in the comments below. I'd love to learn more from you too, so don't be shy and comment down below. Now back to our topic. So it is true that, dragons have always been part of our own native mythologies in the Philippines. And to be honest, if you know where to look, you can actually see them in many aspects of our culture and heritage to this very day, today. And most of the time, our native dragons are literally hiding in plain sight, like in the architecture of our ancestors, such as in the panolong of the Maranao people, where the Naga is integral and a traditional part of their indigenous arts and architecture. So the Naga is often embedded in the architecture to drive away the evil spirits and therefore prevent misfortunes. And in both the Maranao culture and the Kapampangan culture, the mythical Naga, according to our ancestors, is a symbol of power, majesty, fortune, and wealth. And through the centuries, with the coming of Islam on our islands, the appearance of the Naga evolved and it became more abstract, but nevertheless retained its beauty and majesty. And actually, unknown to many, our native dragons and pre-colonial mythologies were also embedded in traditional Kapampangan architecture, including the old Catholic churches from the early colonial period, such as those beautifully carved on from wood and stone in the different parts of the historic churches of Minalin and Betis in Pampanga. And even in the 19th century, in the intricate wooden and metal carvings of the splendid Pamintuan Mansion in my own hometown, in Culiat, or what is now known as Angeles City. Today, the historic Pamintuan Mansion is home to the Museum of Philippine Social History. So when things open up, you should go give them a visit and tell the museum curators and staff I said hi. But anyways, the dragons were part of our ancestors' daily lives. In fact, our traditional calendars from the Visayan people, the Kapampangans, and the Samabajao were also heavily influenced by our ancestors' dragon mythologies. The mythical dragons of our ancestors were also carved into our weapons, like those in the hilts or the handles of the mighty Kampilan, and on the base of the majestic kalis of the Kapampangans. In fact, even our warships, like the mighty Karakoas, were also adorned with the majestic and fearsome carvings of the Nagarajas. And actually, if you look closely enough, you can still see many of these dragons still embedded in the artwork of our modern-day jeepneys and tricycles in Pampanga. And these, the dragons and the Nagarajas of our ancestors are of course similar and related to the cultures and traditions of our neighbors across Southeast Asia. From the royal barges of Thailand to the Balinese and Javanese architectures of Indonesia, the mythology of the Nagas and other native dragons are a beautiful reminder and reflection of our ancestors' interwoven roots, connecting our ancestors' world with the many diverse cultures, colorful traditions, and rich heritage of India, Southeast Asia, China, and beyond. In short, our ancestors were not primitive nor isolated. We were not savages before colonialism. Unknown to many of our people, we shared a lot with our neighbors and the greater world. In fact, our islands have always been at the crossroads of many of the world's greatest civilizations. We've always been at the beating heart of this vast, prosperous network of diverse people, colorful cultures, and magnificent societies. We just need to dig deeper into our roots and learn to appreciate and uplift our own people's culture, history, and traditions. And like what I say on my channel, knowing our roots doesn't simply mean a blind nostalgic or longing for the glitz and glamour of our past while ignoring the conditions of the present. It means being awakened and immersed with the realities of today, armed and empowered with the wisdom and the weapons of our ancestors. It means staying rooted in our history while actively addressing the current crisis towards a brighter future for our people. And that is it for me today. So comment down below which one of these dragons, these mythological moon-eating, sun-eating beings is your favorite. Let me know in the comments down below. And if you like this video or learn a thing or two, please subscribe and give it a like, share this video to more people so more people can learn more about our own people's history, culture, and traditions. But of course, before we go, today's shoutout goes to Ate Ligaya Caballes from New York, Siami Alami from Malaysia, Architect Abdul Malik Diamla from Cotabato, and Dato Arayan from Bukidnon. And special thanks to Bapang Mike Pangilinan, in Lakan Siwala ding Mangubie, ning Ágúman Sínúpan Sing Research Institute and Center for Kapampangan Cultural Heritage. Dakalpong salamat king ega na ganan yung gagawan king pamanaguyod ning kultura ning damlang Kapampangan. And a very special thanks, a very special shout out to my patron, Christian McCormick of California. Maraming salamat po. Maraming salamat, many thanks to all my patrons throughout these years. So for those who want to help me make more videos like this and grow my channel, please be my patron or join and be a member of my YouTube channel. You can also get a copy of any of my books or coloring books. Baliktad na naman, or coloring books or any of my ebooks or merch in the links down below. And again, there's a New Year sale on my website, so use the code NEWYEAR to get 15% off on your purchase. Maraming salamat po, daghang salamat, terima kasih, agyamana, syukran abenal, magsukol, dakalpong salamat. See you next time, or in Tagalog, kita-kits, and in Kapampangan, mikitix, and in Bisaya, kita-ita.